So let's take a look at some other aspects of problem solving, not so much the sort of extreme approaches, but maybe some tips that we can think of these as perhaps tips that can improve problem solving and that can facilitate it. So one aspect is that we need to have a well-defined problem. This is a problem with a clear initial state, like where are we now, and a clear goal state, where do we want to be. So a lot of problems that we might want to improve upon are big. They're really big and they may have no clear starting or end point. And as an example, what about the problem of unemployment, right? If the unemployment rate rises dramatically, we can imagine that at some point we're going to be really interested in reducing the unemployment rate so that, there can be more options for people. To do that, we've seen that some researchers like Reitman have asserted that it's really important to identify the starting point and the end point. Like, how do you know when you've improved the unemployment rate, right? So the starting point is, what is the unemployment rate now? It's relatively very concrete thing in the case of unemployment. So what is the unemployment rate now? And at what point would it be significantly improved? How low do you want it to get? And so that would be a very first step in being able to work on this problem. The unemployment rate right now is X, but we want it to reduce it to Y, to a much lower number. Holyoake suggested that, especially for these types of very big problems, you can create a set of manageable subproblems that provide the structure for converting like something really, a really big, ill-defined problem to a well-defined one. So unemployment you can think of as being a consequence of a number of other things, right? And so maybe it has to do with how much spending money people have, and people don't have a lot of spending money, and then they're not eating out and they're not buying things and they're not using services, and so it makes it harder for those businesses to hire people, for example. It could be beneficial sometimes to break these big problems down into these other subproblems and focus on availability of money, availability of credit might need to be addressed before you can really address the unemployment rate. There are some interesting studies that have been done on some of the obstacles that get in the way of problem solving, and one of them is something called functional fixedness, and it involves having a hard time noticing or recognizing that a familiar object can be used in a totally unfamiliar way. Start off here by looking at this simple diagram. This is a very classic functional fixedness problem. And so you're placed in a room with this set of matches right here and a candle and a box full of tacks. It's like little thumbtacks, right? And your job is to attach the candle to the wall at eye level, so not on the ground, but up at eye level, so that it'll burn properly, so that the candle will burn and it'll light up the room. And the solution, you can see it up here, involves using these items in very novel ways. You dump the tacks out of the box, use the box that they came in to hold the candle, and you fix the box to the wall with the tack. You place the candle on the top and you light it with the match, and voila, you have your problem solved. And so it involves using, in particular, the box of thumbtacks in a way that's sort of novel. You dump out the thumbtacks and you just use the box that it's in. So let's take a look at another example of functional fixedness, or actually examples of a lack of functional fixedness where people have had refreshing approaches to things. So if you don't have a toothbrush holder, you can use the box. Maybe comes in handy when you're staying in a hotel, right? Oh no, you wanted to make up a mix of something, but your blender's broken, or you don't have a blender. Just jam some scissors into your drill and voila, you have a blender. We can see here this very novel way of making a stand. A leaf blower. The bottle of rocks substitutes for the missing doorbell. That acts as a refrigerator, and perhaps my favorite, the pair of mirror sunglasses that allow you to use your side mirror in the car even after it's been broken, right? So what we know about functional fixedness is that it is more common, surprisingly enough, among experts. So the more expert you are at something, the more likely you are to lose the ability to see a novel or fresh use for something, and you're kind of almost like stuck in a rut. So actually, novices, beginners are the ones that tend to be much more creative. There have been research studies looking at like physicists and other scientists and looking at when they develop their, most creative work and most influential work. And it's usually really early in their careers when they're just out of school, not 20 years later.